Am I the asshole for firing my nanny for faking sick to get out of working? My husband and I hired a nanny back in August to care for our kids while we're working. The kids are on a weird schedule at school where they don't attend every day or all day, so we hired a full-time nanny, Marie. We liked Marie, despite some issues with her following guidelines we discussed when we hired her. She let the kids have way too much screen time. She spent more time on her phone than with the kids. She would make messes and let the kids make messes, and she wouldn't clean up after them. She had friends over without letting us know. She let the kids pig out on junk food instead of feeding them real food. All of this had been discussed when we hired her, and we saw it all when we reviewed our security cam footage, so we sat her down about 3 different times and gave her official warnings each time. She'd improve for a while each time but go back to the way she'd been before. And #X200B. 3 days Marie called out, said she was really sick, so I told her to get better and I'd call out from work to be with the kids. I'm in the middle of a big project at work and people not coming hurt everyone, but I'm a mom first and I don't expect Marie to take care of the kids if she feels sick, so I called out. The next day it was really hot out and the local water park is running an off-season special with cheap tickets, so I took the kids and after a while we ran into Marie with a group of her friends. I really couldn't say anything except I hoped she was feeling better. Marie started to apologize and told me that her best friend had gotten tickets to the park and she wanted to go and she didn't think I'd have given her the day off. And #X200B. I told her I would have if only she'd told me the truth. I explained to her that she'd lied to me and made me call out at a time that was really inconvenient, and if she just told me the truth then I'd have understood and I would have been happy to give her the day off and call out myself. It's the fact that she lied to me is what upset me. I added the lie to her other warnings and decided she wasn't worth keeping employed. My husband and I pay well above market rate and we provide everything. All she needed to do was take care of the kids and follow the few rules we set. I took her aside and really quietly and as kindly as possible explained this to her and told her that I'd pay her for the whole week, but she was fired. Marie started crying and her friends figured out what was happening. They called me a bitch, a Karen, a monster. My kids got upset, so I took them and left. Marie has been blowing my phone up with apologies and begging for another chance. Some of my friends say I should have given her another chance and that firing her was an overreaction. Was I an asshole? Edit. Marie is not some teenager. She's a 26-year-old woman with a degree in early childhood education and some other certifications, licenses related to the field. She's had one previous long-term nannying job, classroom experience, and she has several younger siblings and relatives and an extensive babysitting career. All of this I verified, along with a good review from her former position. I had no reason to suspect she was less than she presented. Not the asshole. But extremely inappropriate to fire her whilst out at the park. Should have waited till the next day to talk with her or called her later that evening. Not the asshole. The stuff you mention is enough cause to fire her alone. Most business places have a 3 write-ups and you're fired policy. She's gone beyond this, by lying to you about being sick so she wouldn't have to work, and got caught red-handed. She'd be fired by anyone else for this no matter what field she worked in. Not the asshole. I was a nanny for many families and her behavior is appalling. I would always clean up above and beyond dishes, laundry, etc. Not following the parents' set guidelines is extremely disrespectful. Having her friends over to your home without telling you is too much on its own. I'm honestly shocked you didn't fire her sooner. Look, the moment she had unvetted strangers over at your house around your children without your permission, you would have had grounds to fire her. In my opinion, you gave her too many chances to begin with. Not the asshole and good riddance. Not the asshole. She had multiple warnings, which is generous. Part of the job is following the rules set by the parents. I would have fired her sooner. Also, even though she lied, you generously offered severance pay. She sounds too immature to be a nanny. Not the asshole. You're allowed to be picky about who helps raise your kids. Not the asshole. In most jobs, if an employee repeatedly disregards their employer's direct instructions and then gets caught lying when calling out, they would be fired. Why would your nanny expect to be treated differently? Not the asshole. You gave her multiple chances. Her not following rules, not paying attention to the kids she was paid to watch, not even bothering to make something simple like a sandwich for food. The lie was the final straw. She did not care about your kids, she saw an easy paycheck and sat on her butt slacking off. Now I wouldn't have done it in public, but she had to be let go. She wasn't doing her job and she had enough chances. If you found her on some website, and even if you didn't, warn others about her and how she treats her job. Especially that she invites her friends into the homes of her employers and doesn't pay attention to the kids. Am I the asshole for pulling my daughter out of a wedding? So the short story for background is that I have bad anxiety that runs from okay to severe. I had a miscarriage several months ago and that really hasn't helped at all. Back in January our friends asked if our daughter could be in their wedding as flower girl. I was thrilled about it and we of course said yes. This was before the miscarriage. Since then it became harder for me to focus on things and I admittedly was a little flaky with planning on getting together with her for flower girl practice and things like that. I had a huge bout of anxiety right before their wedding and I refused to go or let my girls out of my sight. My husband was in the wedding party and he wanted to take her anyway, but I told him he wasn't taking my daughter and they would have to understand. She's just a flower girl, it's not a big deal and I just couldn't handle it. The bride is furious with me now. She called to scream at me and tell me how I was such a bitch for using my anxiety as an excuse to not come to the wedding and keep my daughter away. She accused me of wasting her time and money. I told her she needed to read on mental illness and hung up on her. Now everyone is mad at me. My own husband agreed with her calling me a bitch and said I was rude and inconsiderate and that I caused problems between him and the groom because of the little tantrum the bride threw. I don't owe anyone an explanation for my illness and I don't think I'm the one at fault, especially when they know how not myself I've been. My mom agrees that they're acting entitled to my time and my daughter, and need to let it go. You are the asshole. There was no reason your husband couldn't have taken her to be the flower girl since he was in the wedding. Get therapy. Get it now. Your daughter is not your emotional support animal and you don't want to have this kind of dependency on your kid. You are the asshole. Your anxiety is your problem. Not your daughter's, not your husband's, not your friend's problem. You took away something your kid was probably looking forward to, you blew off a friend, and you told your husband that you didn't trust him to take care of his child for the wedding. And you don't even seem sorry about it, you seem to think that the bride is being unreasonable here? Please go to therapy. You are the asshole. You know you're in the wrong, and you're asking us for validation. Your husband could have taken her, and you did not have to go. Frankly, he's probably also upset that she's your daughter and not both of yours in this case. He's also a parent and also has a vote. What are you doing to combat your illness? Your family is suffering, and I'm sure they want to do the work with you, but you have to also do it for yourself. You are the asshole. Your anxiety is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Yours, not your child's. You're going down a path of putting adult responsibility on a little girl and it is only going to pass on the struggles to your children. Get real help if you aren't already so you and your family can live life to the fullest. If you are not in therapy to stop using your child as your emotional support, you are the asshole. Yes, the bride deserved to throw a fit. What you did was ridiculous. I'm sorry for your miscarriage, those are horrible. But you are using your children as your emotional support and that is not good for you or them. You are the asshole. I assume it's your husband's daughter too. He wasn't taking my daughter. Why are you referring to her as yours and only yours? You sound self-centered. Get help. I'm so sorry for your miscarriage. That sounds horrible. That doesn't give you the freedom to be controlling and selfish. You are the asshole. Mental health issues are not an excuse for shitty behavior and you behaved appallingly. Not only this, but you prevented your daughter from attending an event she was probably looking forward to. You let your issues affect your daughter. You wasted the bride and groom's time and money and you caused a whole lot of drama on a day that isn't about you at all. Get some therapy instead of blaming everyone else. Your mental health does not absolve you of your wrongdoing. Info. Does your daughter still want to be the flower girl in the wedding? Am I the asshole for letting me child climb on a rock? Hi. I'm a 34-year-old woman and my 3 children are a 12-year-old boy, a 9-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. My husband is a 35-year-old man. A couple weeks ago we went on a trip to visit some historical sites in several countries in Europe, basically like a road trip. My husband had a terrible headache on the 4th day of our trip, so he stayed at the hotel while our children and I went to a dolmen. When we got there my children were a bit bored, so I let them run around and play for a bit. There weren't a lot of people so they were not bothering anyone, and then my 9-year-old climbed on one of the boulders of the dolmen. He looked so proud of himself when he managed to climb up, so I wanted to take a photo of him, but then a girl, around 19 I'd say, walked up to me and sarcastically asked, "Do you let your kids climb on their grandparents' graves like that too?" Needless to say, I got a bit angry and told her to mind her own business and said that a 5,000-year-old dead guy won't mind it if a child climbs on a rock. Her face looked like I'd just killed a puppy in front of her and she walked away. When we got back to the hotel I told my husband about it and he said that it's a bit tasteless to let someone climb on what's, essentially a gravestone. I got mad because he wouldn't support me and undermined me in front the children like that. I went to the bathroom where I called my sister to tell her what happened. She said that the girl shouldn't have approached me like that but that I was also wrong for the way I responded to her. I told her that the girl was out of line talking to someone that's older than her like that and I hung up. It's been a couple weeks now and it just hasn't been sitting right with me. I've been thinking that maybe I am the asshole and I guess I can see why someone would see a dolmen as a grave. So, am I the asshole for letting my child climb on a rock? You are the asshole. I had to go look up what a dolmen is, but you are the asshole for letting your kid climb on that. It is clearly a thing with ritual significance and they also look somewhat precarious, like a lot of people climbing on them could topple them. You are also the asshole for thinking that she couldn't call you out on letting your kids climb a tomb because she happens to be younger than you. Even old people get to be called out when they do stupid shit. You are the asshole. I've just checked out what dolems are, and they appear to be pretty clearly at least revered as graves, or at least thought of as that type of thing. So no, you probably shouldn't have let your kid climb. Was anyone else climbing it? Because if no, then you're in the wrong. And #X200B. I told her that the girl was out of line talking to someone that's older than her like that. Also this. You're not owed respect just because you're older. If you were doing something impolite, out of order, or overall looked down upon, she had every right to tell you so. You are the asshole. Those are historical sites and not a playground. YTA. It's distasteful and ignorant. You could have taken it as an opportunity to educate your children about respecting their surroundings and especially burial grounds. The fact that you got mad at your husband for not taking your side is even worse. It's okay to admit you were wrong and it's especially okay for your children to see you can be wrong. Do better. You are the asshole for letting your kids run wild and climb on a memorial. Yes. You are the asshole. It's a historical site, not a playground. It's also pretty much the same thing as a grave. And yes, it is disrespectful to have your children climbing all over it. Secondly, you saying, well, she's younger than me so she shouldn't have said anything, is absolute drivel. What nonsense. She took you to task because, even though you're older than her, you didn't have the good sense or grace to keep your children from climbing on things they've no business climbing. You're not entitled to do whatever you want without reproach just because you're older than some people. YTA. It isn't about climbing a rock, it is about respect. She was right, you wouldn't let him do this on a gravestone. This isn't any different. Edit. And it was also a historic place, so even bigger YTA. This is how you start creating vandals. You are the asshole. You're raising your children to become permanent assholes that just get to do whatever they feel like and then come up with horrid excuses for why nobody should ever give them a hard time. Teaching them that when your husband mildly calls you out on obvious selfish behavior as undermining is maybe the worst thing you've done here. But teaching them that the responsible young woman was out of line, simply because you're older, is also terrible. These kids are going to grow up incredibly entitled and closed-minded if this story is any indication. Am I the asshole for telling my dad how I feel about my stepbrother? My parents got divorced when I was 14. My dad remarried when I was 16. My stepmom had a 15-year-old son named Adam with pretty severe autism. A few months after we all moved in together, Adam became pretty attached to me. He'd cry if I locked my door, throw tantrums if I had guy friends over, and just generally glue himself to me on my days there. I moved out for college a few states away and my dad just called to tell me they had gotten an Airbnb to stay for Thanksgiving break. The Airbnb has 2 rooms, one of which is separated by a sliding divider thing with no lock. I told my dad I had plans and he told me I had to come because it had already been booked and Adam really missed me. I kind of snapped. I told him how uncomfortable Adam made me and how I hated that he never did anything about it when I lived with him. I ended the call pretty abruptly after I told him I was not staying with them over break. Him and my stepmom have been blowing up my phone calling me ableist and saying how horrible it is that I think Adam would do anything. He hasn't done anything physical and I do care about him, but I really need outside perspective. Edit. Adam also has a few minor cognitive disabilities. His reasoning and understanding of boundaries are severely impaired from what I know. I should have mentioned it in the post, but my dad and stepmom have always said he's autistic when talking about his disabilities, so it's habit. Adam's attachment to me is also due to a crush, which is the reason why I am uncomfortable to share a room with him. Not the asshole, especially if you told your dad as a teen that he made you uncomfortable. Your dad ignored your boundaries in favor of your stepbrother. By the very definition of ableism, considering people with disabilities are inferior, aren't your parents the ableists here? If your stepbrother didn't have autism, would they allowed him to become so fixated on you? Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You are not the parent here, they are. They need to understand, accept and manage Adam's effect on other people. Sounds like you feel smothered by the situation. Particularly when your parents arbitrarily made weekend plans for you without consulting you first. A rather high-handed thing to do considering you live several states away and essentially have your own life now. You've expressed your concerns about the locked door and other things now and in the past. If your dad cannot respect your concerns, then you have no choice but to distance yourself. Especially if they are now blaming you for the changed weekend plans, rather than recognizing that they overstepped in the first place. Unfortunate, but there it is. Not the asshole. You aren't Adam's surrogate friend, helpmate, parent. It isn't ableist to have boundaries and expect them to be respected. This isn't about his limitations, it's about your right to some autonomy. The exact same things have been said in other posts about younger step-sibs getting really attached to their older step-sib and they and the parents having a pretty entitled set of expectations of the older step-sib. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. It sounds like you're not angry with Adam, you're angry with your dad and stepmother for not supporting you when you felt uncomfortable. Nothing unreasonable about that. Not the asshole. Even if Adam isn't doing anything physical, you still deserve your own space. Your dad and stepmom are responsible for teaching Adam that you are your own person and not just someone who exists for him to hang out with. Not the asshole. Adam was basically seeing every move of yours and wouldn't leave you alone.